Howdy guys, DB McCrae. Just want to start off this particular video with another plug for Rise of the Oathbreakers. For those of you who have read it, and I'm sure you've passed it along, that's what the goal is. It's not a matter of how many books are sold, it's how many times it's been read by different people. That's how you gain the knowledge. So like I said, it's not about how many copies are sold. It never has been. That was never the goal to begin with. Okay, well, this is going to be a slightly different video. It has to do with the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and once again, let's just put ourselves in the shoes of an activist. And Jeff Gray with Honor Your Oath Investigations he's such a wonderful man, and he's like the Tusai. He just keeps taking hit after hit, and he keeps coming back. So anyway, thank you, Jeff Gray. You're amazing. But he's been arrested like other people for holding a sign that has a particular word. Other people are being arrested by law enforcement because they speak that particular word. And we know what it is. 4 letters arranged in a certain way. But if you end up getting tagged by the police and actually prosecuted by a corrupt prosecutor for saying that particular word or for having it on a sign, and you're in court, it's probably going to be, I don't know, it'll probably be a trial before a judge rather than a jury trial. It doesn't matter. Somebody is holding themselves up in a position of judgment over you. So those are the ones that we have to convince. It'd be nice if there weren't, if the police wouldn't make those arrests in the first place, but we all know that's just not the reality. So the first thing I want to cover, and it's a term that I use a number of times in Rise of the Oathbreakers, we're talking about naughty words. They're naughty words. It's like being back in grade school. He said a naughty word and you end up, I don't know, back when I was in grade school, there was corporal punishment and you might come away with a bloody nose. Not the right thing, but that's just the way it was then too. But this is about the use of naughty words. So because I'm up here in Maine, I'm going to use Maine's definition of disorderly conduct. Because as we know also that's usually the charge, that's the go-to charge by police and prosecutors when you use a naughty word in public. So in Maine, what rises to the level of disorderly conduct through your words? Anyway, that's the particular naughty word, and I have to do that. Not that I would anyway, but that makes YouTube censors, sleep better at night. In Maine, disorderly conduct is using insulting, accosting, taunting, or challenging words that are offensive, annoying, and derisive. Okay, let's go through that again. The naughty words, they're not defined. This is actually what they seem to think amounts to naughty words. And again, it's if you insult somebody, if you accost somebody with words, if you taunt somebody with words, if you challenge somebody with words, and they find those words offensive, annoying, or derisive, you can be arrested in Maine for disorderly conduct. Now, what's the problem? It's called vagueness. This is why police can use disorderly conduct to just make all sorts of baloney arrests. This is so wide open, again, it's so vague that it can be bent any way that the state wants to bend it. And that because they have a propensity for filing charges for things that, to think that we're in the United States of America, and if you say a word or you go to jail, and it happens all the time. I don't know. So that's the main. Those are the elements of the crime for disorderly conduct in Maine. So let's talk about naughty words, okay? And something that's called plain language of the law, plain language. There's also something else that's called legislative intent. But the first thing that you do with every law is you parse out the plain language. You can understand, I'm sure, what that means, that you can't read or substitute whatever. It's whatever is written is the way it is. So here's the first problem. Insulting, accosting, taunting, challenging. Do you think that those words are defined in law? They're defined in a dictionary, but they're not defined in statute and law. Now, what happens in court, if there's not a specific definition for insulting, accosting, taunting, and challenging, what the judges normally do is they'll turn to Black's Law Dictionary, right there on the bench, during whether it's a preliminary hearing or trial by the judge or whatever. They'll open up Black's Law Dictionary and they'll go, well, this is how they define insulting, but you and I don't know what that definition is. And it's just so wide open. Using words or language that insult somebody, well, I think you have a big nose. You said that, go to jail. You insulted somebody. This is in the United States, and I'm going to keep coming back to that. So these words that they have that are supposedly qualifiers for disorderly conduct, they're not defined in law. You know where they're defined? In the brain or the mind of an officer and a prosecutor and ultimately a judge. They get to decide the definition for naughty words, okay? And when you get this level of vagueness, you can't win. And for disorderly conduct statutes in almost every state, they're written this way, with this wide open, vague language that you could fit anything into to ruin a life. And the state, the government, is the arbiter of what we can say and what we can do. The government decides. And then the government workers arrest, the government workers prosecute. Government workers decide what words we can say. And there's both public and private settings. I'm talking about public settings. So let's say, for instance, well, let's use Jeff Gray's example, okay? He writes words on a sign. Let's say, for instance, he used, this is the full word. I just put that, like I said, in there to appease the YouTube censors, but he uses that full word. You know what that word is? It's 4 letters arranged in a certain way. Okay, let me repeat that. All it is 4 letters of the English alphabet that are arranged in a specific or certain way. And that's it. If you were to transpose just one letter with another, if it were F, C, U, K, same 4 letters, but they're just arranged in a different way, or you had K, F, U, C. So that's what this word is. We can attach all sorts of meanings to it, but once again, that depends upon the individual, okay? So again, it's a word with 4 letters arranged in a certain way that Jeff Gray has on a sign. What if he had written this? PH, same sound like Philadelphia, PH, UCK. Would he have gotten arrested? Well, now you've got not 4 letters arranged in a certain way, you've got 5 letters arranged in a certain way. It's simply phonetics at that point. It sounds the same, but it doesn't have any meaning to it. It has no, I'll bet they can't find that word in a Black's Law Dictionary. So the meaning, the intent gets across, but it's not the word. It's not the 4 letters arranged in a certain way. What if he had written this, or anybody who engages in First Amendment free speech activity? What if they'd written PHUK? It's the same phonetic, same phonetic, same phonetic, same phonetic, but they're completely different letters arranged a different way. Would that activist get arrested? It's simply pronounced the same way. It sounds the same, okay, like close and close. It's basically the same word, only just different in its own way. So now would you get arrested? What if you had, like I said, the letters transposed? F-U-K-C. People are going to know what you're getting at, but it's not the word. It doesn't even sound the same unless the C is silent. And then we get into things like, what if each letter of the real word are used, in this case it would be a sign, but they're widely spaced? Like this one letter is here or here, and the next one is like over on the edge of the sign, and then under the F is the third letter, and under the U is the fourth. You see what happens with these open-ended disorderly conduct laws and how they can be interpreted any way that the government wants them to be interpreted? So what if you had a sign that had this? Let me just, if it had this, I hope you can see it. If you had certain words after this one, like you, would you get arrested? But that's not the word, it's tuck. It only kind of looks, if you put a little tag right here, I guess you'd go to jail. If you took that little tiny tag off, you're good to go. This is why government has no business being the arbiter of free speech. And remember, when they start getting involved with things like controlling speech, it only goes one direction. Government never rescinds or repeals a law. They only get more restrictive. They only ban more things. They only steal more freedom. Okay, so this is different arrangement. This one is when they're widely spaced, and this one could be interpreted by somebody who glances or doesn't look closely, and then they call, oh, there's an offensive word, I'm offended. Well, then the officers show up, what do? It's like, it's not the word, it's tuck. Look at this one. Can that be interpreted as a U? I suppose, but it's not what it is. It's F and a small L and a small O, C-K. It's flock. I bet they get arrested, but that's not the word. It's flock. Just like tuck is not the word, it's tuck. Okay, now here's where we get into some fun. Let's say you get an officer on the stand, the arresting officer, and he's going to do his testimony. He's going to give his spiel in front of the judge and the court, and the prosecutor is going to lead him down that primrose path, lane kind of thing. And then when they get done, there's the opportunity for the defense to cross-examine. Now, whether that's the activist who does that on their own, this should be beneficial, and if it's a defense attorney hasn't thought of this, it can be beneficial. First question is, this word was considered insulting, accosting, taunting, challenging, and somebody said they were offended. What other specific words in the English language does the government and its government worker who made the arrest, what other words specifically are insulting, accosting, taunting, or challenging? Wait a minute, sounds to me like it's up to the discretion of the government. So that brings us to the next question that you can actually ask an officer on the stand. You just asked him, what are other words? What are other words? You may and here's the next question, or in there somewhere. Where's the official list of naughty words? Well, there is no official. What do you mean there's no official list? Wouldn't there have to be an official list of words that we can't speak in public as an American citizen? Or yes or no, is there an official list of all the naughty words that we can't speak in public or can't put on a sign? What are they going to say? There's no official list. Well, now it's up to the discretion of the government worker. They get to decide what words are insulting, accosting, taunting, or challenging, which cause offense, annoyance, or they're derisive. these are questions that you can ask the officer when they're testifying. What other words can't you speak as an American citizen? Where's that official list? Officer, isn't it true that without an official list, you get to decide what an offensive word is? Yes or no? And here's another one. What if, officer, what if 100 people walked by my sign and only one found it offensive? The other 99 couldn't care less. If one out of that 100 says they're offended, do you still take me to jail and ruin my life? So how many people can claim offense before you just cart me off to jail, before you cart people off to jail because you didn't like the language, since you have held yourself up as the language police in the United States? What if only one claimed offense out of 100? You see, this is dangerous. These disorderly conduct laws, again, they're so vague. They can be misused, misapplied, and they are. Probably more than actual disorderly conduct, which we all see as somebody who is intoxicated out on the sidewalk in front of a bar and they're acting nuts. That's disorderly conduct. But just to have 4 letters print or written on a sign. Okay, now, what other words? Where's the official list? Are you able to provide an official list of words that people will find this? These are the words that are tied right back into the disorderly conduct law. And I have no official list. Well, what if only one person claimed offense? So now, I love this. The cop's on the stand, and you're going to ask the officer, Officer, what was the specific word I had on my sign that you found offensive and that you arrested me for? What was the specific word, and what's the officer going to say? He's going to use the word, and then you ask a second time. I want to ask one more time, specifically, the word that you read on the sign that you decided was offensive that got me thrown into a cage. What's that word that was on the sign? He's going to say the word. Oh, you know what? I just want to make sure the court reporter is clear on this. One more time, what was the word on the sign? And he's going to speak the word. Are you following me yet? I love this. You had the word on a sign, or let's say you spoke it too, whatever. The officer you have gotten the officer to admit, which he probably would have done on, the initial testimony through the prosecutor, but you're going to get him to admit once again that it was that specific word that got you arrested, and now the officer has repeated those words in testimony. So, officer, it's not the use of the word, it's how it's used. It's the context. You can say it 3 times in a courtroom and not get in any trouble. I speak it once outside of the courtroom and I go to jail and you get to ruin my life? It's context. If you say it in testimony, it's fine. But when you say the same word, you understand what I mean? It's now contextual. He said the same word, which should have the same impact on offending people, but he gets passed because he's testifying. Well, if he gets a pass on testifying, then that means that it's the context. It's how it's used. And that's it. I think this would work. And this is something I like to do when it comes to parsing out this kind of stuff, just like I did with a legal defense for activists where somebody calls, it goes 911, goes to the officer, comes to the activist. You know what I should call that? If you think about it, it's the activist, the caller, 911, and the cop, and then the cop makes contact. Well, that's like a baseball field. So you know what I'm going to call it? I'm going to call it Dave's Diamond Defense. I don't know. Anyway, So this is one of the things in terms of a legal strategy to try and win when you're charged with speaking or writing a naughty word. We can't live life this way. We can't. You know, there's other examples I could talk about, which I won't, but we all know, we can all think of our own examples of I annoy somebody. Somebody found my language annoying. So here comes the government worker with qualified immunity, and off you go to a cage because somebody was annoyed. These laws, disorderly conduct and disturbing the peace, they're not just outrageous, they're dangerous. So until next time, we'll see what we can come up with, and so you all take care, be safe, and don't forget, Rise of the Oathbreakers. And now, I don't want anybody to forget Dave's Diamond Defense. Should have been a lawyer.